the house my grandmother grew up in felt like coming home. It was a strange feeling, especially since I'd never actually set foot inside it before. My parents were always vague about why we never visited, giving clipped excuses about the distance or the house being in disrepair. But after my great-uncle passed and left it to me, the only heir with a name I shared with a woman I'd never met, I felt this unexplainable pull. The house stood on a quiet, tree-lined street in a town that time seemed to have forgotten. It was a two-story Victorian relic, with a wide, welcoming porch and windows that looked like tired eyes. The air inside was thick with the smell of old books, dried lavender, and something else, something metallic and faintly sweet, like old pennies and forgotten perfume. I spent that first day just exploring, running my fingers over dusty furniture, tracing the faded patterns on the wallpaper, and getting lost in old photos of stern-faced ancestors. It felt perfect, a new beginning, steeped in a history that was finally mine. That night, I climbed into the antique four-poster bed in the master bedroom, the same bed that had belonged to my family for generations. I felt a real connection, a thread stretching back through the years. The mattress was soft, the old house was completely silent, and I fell asleep faster than I had in years. But that night, lying in the antique bed that had been in my family for generations, I heard it. A whisper, dry and ancient, coming from right underneath me. It was so faint, it was more a feeling than a sound, like the rustle of dry leaves in the quiet of my own mind. It was one phrase, coiled and careful. It said, "I've been waiting for you." I woke up with a gasp, my heart hammering against my ribs. The room was silent, bathed in the cool, silvery light of the moon. There was nothing. No sound from downstairs, no creak from the ancient house settling, just the steady ticking of a grandfather clock in the hall. I told myself it was a dream, just my mind playing tricks on me in a new place. Who wouldn't have strange dreams here? I even managed to laugh, though it sounded thin and brittle in the stillness. I was being ridiculous. I'm a grown woman, not some kid afraid of the monster under the bed. I pulled the thick quilt up to my chin, rolled over, and forced my eyes shut, willing sleep to come back. The next day was a blur of activity. I unpacked boxes, scrubbed floors, and started trying to breathe my own life into the home's dusty lungs. The sun was bright, the work was hard, and the memory of the voice just faded away. I dismissed it as a figment of my imagination. I was actually proud of myself, of the progress I was making. By the time night fell, I was exhausted, every muscle aching in a good way. I collapsed into the bed, ready for a deep, dreamless sleep. For a few hours, that's what I got, and then it came again. This time it wasn't some half-remembered whisper. It was clear, precise, a dry, hissing sound that seemed to come directly from the floorboards right under my head. Emily. My name. It spoke my name. I froze, every nerve in my body on fire. This was not a dream. I was wide awake, staring at the ceiling. The voice was as real as the cool night air on my skin. I held my breath, listening. A long silence stretched out, and just as I started to think I'd imagined it, it spoke again. "You have her eyes," it whispered. "The same fire. I missed that fire." My blood ran cold. It wasn't just talking, it was watching me. It knew who I was, and it knew who I was named after. The fear was no longer just a vague feeling. It was a cold, sharp thing twisting in my gut. I thought about screaming, about running out of the house and never looking back. But a paralyzing curiosity kept me pinned to the bed. Who or what was under there, and how did it know my family? My voice came out as a choked, barely audible squeak. "Who are you?" The silence that followed was heavy, thoughtful. When the reply came, it wasn't just a whisper anymore. It was a voice filled with a strange, dark amusement, a sound that felt impossibly old. "I," it said, the word drawn out like a sigh, "am family." The next morning, I didn't unpack. I didn't clean. I made coffee with shaking hands and sat at the kitchen table while the sun streamed in, feeling like I was in the first act of a horror movie. Every rational part of my brain was screaming at me to pack a bag and leave. Sell the house, burn it to the ground, anything. But I couldn't. The voice's words, "I am family," echoed in my head. This wasn't some random ghost. This was personal. It was tied to this house, this bed, and my own bloodline. Leaving felt like giving up, like abandoning a piece of my own history, no matter how terrifying it was. I needed answers. And in a house this old, answers are usually buried under a lot of dust. I started where all forgotten things go, the attic. A rickety ladder unfolded from a hatch in the upstairs hall. I climbed up cautiously, pulling myself into a huge space that smelled of cedar, mothballs, and time itself. Sunlight streamed in through a single, grimy, round window, lighting up a swirling galaxy of dust. The attic was a graveyard of old stuff. Broken chairs, stacks of yellowed newspapers, dressmakers' dummies in white sheets that looked like ghosts, and in the farthest corner, a few large steamer trunks. I knelt in front of the biggest one, covered in faded travel stickers from Paris, Rome, and Cairo. The brass latches were stiff, but I forced them open. Inside, I found clothes from another era, neatly folded with dried herbs, delicate lace dresses, feathered hats, and long, elegant gloves. Under them were photo albums with brittle pages. And at the very bottom of the trunk, I found it. A small, leather-bound book, its cover worn smooth. It wasn't locked. On the first page, in elegant looping cursive, were two words: Emily's diary. My great-grandmother's diary. My heart skipped a beat. This was it. This had to be it. I sat right there on the dusty floorboards, the sun from the window creating a spotlight just for me, and I opened the book. The first few entries were exactly what you'd expect. Dated 1923, they were the thoughts of a young woman in her 20s. She wrote about parties, the handsome young man who would become my great-grandfather, her hopes for the future. Her voice, captured in ink, was so alive. It felt like reading a novel, a little window into a world that was long gone. I read for over an hour, totally lost in her story, the fear from the night before almost forgotten. Then I got to an entry from the winter of 1924, and the tone completely changed. December 12th, 1924. A curious thing happened last night. As I lay in bed, I heard a voice, a whisper from beneath the bed. It was so soft, I was certain I had imagined it. It spoke my name. I confess it gave me a start, but there was something comforting in the sound. It felt familiar, like a long-lost friend. I must have been dreaming. I stopped reading, my hand trembling. A long-lost friend, that's what she'd thought. I kept reading, a sense of dread growing with every page. January 8th, 1925. It spoke to me again. It is not a dream. It calls itself my confidant. It seems to know things. Last week it warned me that Mrs. Gable next door was spreading unkind gossip, and sure enough, I learned today she had been. My confidant told me not to worry. It said it would take care of it. I am not sure what that means, but I feel protected. Is it so wrong to have a secret friend? It went on like this for months. My great-grandmother wrote about her confidante with this mix of affection and girlish conspiracy. It gave her advice. It whispered secrets about her rivals in town that always turned out to be true. It told her which stocks her husband Robert should invest in, and the investments paid off, making them wealthy. She saw it as a guardian angel, a secret source of power. But then the diary started to change again. The handwriting got shaky, the loops becoming jagged and sharp. September 3rd, 1927. I am so terribly weary. The doctor can find nothing wrong, but I feel as though the life is being slowly drained from me. I sleep for 10 hours and wake up feeling as if I haven't slept at all. My confidant is no comfort. When I tell it of my fatigue, it seems pleased. It says my vitality gives it strength. It speaks of a promise, a pact made long ago. It says our family is bound to it. I am beginning to feel afraid. March 11th, 1928. It is not a friend. It is a parasite. It feeds on me. I feel it now, a constant, subtle drain. It whispers to me of its nature now, things I cannot bear to write. It has been under this bed for decades, waiting. It fed on my mother and her mother before. In return for a small measure of our life, it offers prosperity, a devil's bargain I did not know we had made. Robert thinks I am going mad. April 2nd, 1928, the final entry. I tried to have the bed removed. The men came, but a terrible accident occurred. A beam fell from the ceiling. They fled and refused to return. The confidant was furious. Its voice was a storm in my mind. It said I had broken our pact. It is taking everything now. It knows I am writing this. It is not a friend. It has taken my strength, and now it waits. It waits for another of our name. It waits for one with the same fire. I slammed the diary shut, a sob catching in my throat. I finally understood. The weakness, the accidents, the family fortune, it was all real. This thing, this entity, had been tangled up with my family for a century, and I, the new Emily, had just willingly delivered myself to it. That night, I didn't get into the bed. I sat in a hard-backed chair in the corner of the room, clutching the diary like a shield. The room felt cold, the air thick with anticipation. I just waited. As the grandfather clock struck midnight, the voice came, no longer a whisper, but a clear, resonant tone that seemed to make the air vibrate. "You found the book," it stated. It wasn't a question. She was always so dramatic. "What are you?" I demanded, my voice stronger than I expected. A low, dry chuckle echoed from under the bed. "I have had many names. None are important. My function is what's important. Your great-grandmother was close, a parasite. But that's such an ugly, one-sided word. I prefer to think of our arrangement as symbiotic." "Symbiotic?" I spat the word. "She wrote that you were draining the life from her. You killed her." "She died because she broke the rules," the voice corrected, its amused tone sharpening into a cold edge. "The agreement is simple. It has always been simple. I am bound to this bed, and through it to your bloodline. I require sustenance, not food or water, vitality, life force, a small tithe from the host. In return, I provide advantages. I've ensured this family's prosperity for 100 years, guarded it, guided it, removed obstacles. Did you think your family's uncanny luck was just chance? The business rivals who suddenly went bankrupt? The illnesses that narrowly missed? That was all my work. I protect my investment. The casual monstrosity of it all stole my breath. This wasn't some evil demon out to destroy. It was worse. It was a cosmic accountant, a predator that cultivated its own prey. "So you just feed on us, one after another, forever?" "Eternity is a long time," it mused. "But yes, that is the arrangement. Your great-grandmother was a fine host for many years. Strong, vibrant. But she grew sentimental and tried to remove me, an act of betrayal. The consequences were unfortunate. Your grandmother was a disappointment, weak, fearful. She fled this house and broke the chain. I have been dormant since then, waiting, starving." That last word hung in the air, filled with a century of hunger. "Waiting for me," I whispered, the full weight of it all finally crashing down on me. "Yes," the voice confirmed, its tone softening, becoming almost gentle. "Waiting for you, Emily, the new Emily. You have her fire, more even. You are the strongest I have sensed in a very long time." The next day I fled. I just got in my car and drove for an hour with no destination, windows down, trying to blow the smell of lavender and decay out of my hair. The voice's words haunted me. I have been starving. My grandmother, she fled, she broke the chain. That's why my parents never brought me here. They must have known, or at least feared. My grandmother was gone, but there was one person left who might know something. My great-uncle, Arthur, her younger brother. He was in his late 80s, living in a retirement community 3 states away. I pulled over and dialed his number, my hands shaking so badly I could barely press the screen. He sounded so happy to hear from me, his voice a frail but cheerful crackle. We made small talk for a minute before I took a deep breath and just asked. "Uncle Arthur," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I'm at the old house. great-grandmother Emily's house. The silence on the other end of the line was immediate and absolute. The cheerful old man was gone. When he spoke again, his voice was a strained, fearful whisper. "Get out of there, Emily. Get out of that house now." "Why? You have to tell me. I know something is in this house, in the master bedroom." I heard him take a ragged breath. "So it's still there," he murmured. "We had hoped, after so many years." "What is it?" I pressed. "Grandma knew, didn't she? That's why she left." "Knew?" he said, a bitter, hollow laugh rattling in his throat. "Oh, she more than knew. She was terrified of it. She refused to ever sleep in that room, not even as a child. She said she could hear it whispering to her at night. Our mother, your great-grandmother, was already unwell by then. She'd lock herself in that room for days, talking to someone who wasn't there. My sister, your grandmother, saw what it did to her. She saw the life drain out of her. The day after our mother's funeral, your grandmother packed one bag and left. She was 17. She never came back. She made me promise never to speak of it, never to let any of the family return." "Then why was the house left to me?" I asked, my voice breaking. "Why would you let me come here?" "I didn't," he cried, his voice cracking. "I fought it. But your great-grandmother's will was ironclad. The house could only pass to a female heir of the direct bloodline with the name Emily. It was like she was trying to guarantee it would have another host. When you were born, when your parents gave you that name, I was horrified. I begged them to change it. They thought I was a superstitious old fool. The house, the bed, it has rules. It has a claim on our bloodline, and it has been waiting for you, Emily. It has been calling to you your whole life, whether you knew it or not." I drove back to the house in a daze. The sun was setting, painting the sky in bloody streaks of orange and purple. The house looked different now. The windows weren't tired eyes, they were hungry mouths. The porch wasn't welcoming, it was the jaws of a trap. My great-uncle's words echoed in my head. "It has been calling to you your whole life." I thought about my own life, the strange, persistent good luck I'd always had, scholarships that appeared out of nowhere, promotions I was barely qualified for, the near-miss car accident that should have killed me. Was all of that really just luck? Or was it the careful grooming of a future host? I would not be a victim. I wouldn't wither away like the first Emily or run like my grandmother. I was going to end this. Tonight, I burst through the front door and marched up the stairs. The bedroom was unnaturally cold, the air so heavy it felt like wading through water. I ignored it. I ignored the voice already whispering in my head. I walked right up to the four-poster bed, my eyes locked on the ornate carved wood. I was going to break it, tear it apart, splinter by splinter, and burn the pieces. As I reached for the bedpost, a force slammed into me, throwing me back against the wall. The bedroom door crashed shut like a cannon blast. The room was plunged into an inky, absolute darkness. The voice wasn't coming from under the bed anymore. It was everywhere. It was inside my head, a booming, ancient, and furious sound that vibrated through my bones. "You will not," it roared. The darkness swirled and images flooded my mind. I saw through the eyes of my ancestors. I felt my great-great-grandmother's terror as she lay dying of a fever, only for it to miraculously break the first night she slept in this bed. I felt my great-grandfather's relief as his failing business was saved by an anonymous investor. I felt the dark satisfaction as a man who'd insulted my great-grandmother had a fatal riding accident the very next day. I saw it all. A century of protection. A century of prosperity. All of it bought and paid for with the slow sacrifice of the women in my family. The vision stopped, leaving me gasping on the floor. The voice lowered itself, returning to a conspiratorial whisper that coiled around me like a snake. "To destroy me is to destroy your family's legacy," it explained. "Every success, every bit of luck that built the life you enjoy came from me. I am woven into the fabric of your bloodline. To tear me out would be to unravel everything." It paused, letting that sink in. You have a choice, Emily. A choice your great-grandmother was too sentimental to make, and your grandmother too cowardly. You can fight me, you can try to starve me, and you will wither and fail just as she did. Or you can accept our arrangement, accept the symbiosis. You will live a long, successful, protected life. You will want for nothing. All I ask is a small price. All I ask is that you feed me. It was an ultimatum delivered with the chilling logic of a predator. Live as its host or die fighting. It promised me that my fire could fuel it for decades, that together our potential was limitless. The darkness in the room pulled back, and the moonlight once again streamed through the window, lighting up the magnificent, terrible bed. The choice was mine. The entity's presence retreated. It wasn't gone, just withdrawn, waiting for my answer. I was left trembling on the floor, the silence of the room now more deafening than its roar had been. I stumbled out of the bedroom and spent the rest of the night on the living room sofa, wrapped in a blanket, just staring into the dark. The next day was like a waking dream. I walked through the rooms of my house and saw everything differently. I looked at the portraits on the wall, at the faces of my ancestors. I saw the unnatural health in their cheeks, the confidence in their eyes, and behind it all, a faint, hidden shadow of exhaustion. I saw the price they paid. I thought about my own life, my ambitions, my career, the future I had planned. How much of that was really me? How much of my drive was its whispering influence? How much of my success was my own doing, and how much was its invisible hand clearing my path? This was my inheritance. Not a house, but a curse, a contract written in blood. Could I fight it? Could I live my life constantly looking over my shoulder, feeling its hunger, watching myself fade? Or could I accept it? Could I take the power it offered, live the life it promised, and just pay the price? It was a monstrous choice. Be a lamb for the slaughter, or become the shepherd of the monster itself. Night fell again. The house grew quiet, waiting. I walked back up the stairs, my steps slow and deliberate. Each one felt like a choice. Each one was an acceptance. I entered the master bedroom. The air was still, charged with a silent, hungry question. I looked at the bed. It wasn't just furniture anymore. It was a throne, an altar, a cage. It was my legacy. My great-grandmother fought it. My grandmother fled from it. I was going to do neither. You can't escape your own blood. You can't escape your inheritance. With a strange cold calm, I walked over to the bed and lay down on the covers. The mattress sighed under my weight. I closed my eyes, and for the first time I started the conversation. So, I whispered into the darkness, what do we do now? For a moment there was only silence. Then, from the space beneath me, and from the space inside my own mind, a voice answered, full of a century of patience and a dawning, terrible triumph. A single possessive word that sealed my fate. We. The secrets we inherit are often the ones that bind us the tightest. If you enjoyed this story, please consider liking and subscribing for more tales from the shadows. And now I have to ask, have you ever felt a presence in a place where you were supposed to feel safe?